As we converge in this immediate vicinity, it begs the question why. We are here simply to recognize the important contribution that the micro, small, and medium enterprises make towards economic growth, creation of jobs, provision of public and service goods, as well as poverty alleviation and reduced inequality. This would not have been possible without the generosity of the government and people of China, Taiwan, who have provided invaluable support to this initiative. To commemorate this event, I would like to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Peter Chen, Taiwanese Ambassador, Honorable Alan Chasney, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and the Public Service. Honorable Bradley Felix, Minister for Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs. Mrs. Sophia M. Henry, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs. Mr. Brian Louisi, Executive Director, St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture. Mr. Anthony Bosque, President of the Bakers Association. Staff of the Ministry of Commerce, specially invited guests, and the media. Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you a very good morning and welcome you to our handing over ceremony for the MSME Private Sector Support Intervention Program. To officially welcome, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Mrs. Sophia Henry. Please give her a spirited welcome to the podium.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Peter Chen, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Honorable Alan Chasney, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and Public Service, Honorable Bradley Felix, Minister for Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs, Mr. Matthew Branford, Accountant General at the Accountant General Department, Mr. Brian Louisi, Executive Director, St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, Ms. Paula James, Executive Director, St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, Mr. Anthony Bosque, President, Bakers Association Incorporated, management and staff of the Ministry of Commerce, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you a very pleasant good morning. As Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs, it is indeed a privilege to warmly welcome you to this brief but very important check handover ceremony for another COVID-19 private sector intervention. The initiative was designed in collaboration with the business community to assist the owners and lower-income employees of micro, small, and medium enterprises to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus. In pursuit of my ministry's mandate to lend support to the private sector, enhance productivity, and moreover, advance business activity, we have over the years developed a very good relationship with the business associations. Permit me to acknowledge our business support partners who represent hundreds of businesses and facilitate the effective exchange of information between the ministry and the business community. The St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, St. Lucia Coalition of Service Industries, Inc., the Southern Business Association, St. Lucia Fashion Council, St. Lucia Industrial and Small Business Association, Bakers Association, Inc., St. Lucia Shippers Association. I wish to thank our partners for their vital support, particularly to the micro, small, and medium enterprises that do not have the capacity to grow or survive on their own under normal circumstances, or worse, to survive a pandemic of this magnitude. Many MSMEs would probably not be in existence today without the level of collaboration that exists between the private sector associations and the Ministry of Commerce. The ministry also works very closely with other government agencies in responding to the needs of the private sector. We were encouraged by the speedy action of the Department of Economic Development in processing our request for assistance from the government of China, Taiwan. Thousands of lower-income employees and owners of MSMEs will receive reusable face masks and a variety of cleaning supplies for use at home and in their business. The initiative was very well received by the government of China, Taiwan, and the processing of the request was expedited by the local embassy. Ambassador Peter Chen, your commitment to the growth and development of MSMEs, and by extension our country, St. Lucia, is evident in the number of ways your government has continued to provide support and engage the various government ministries and departments. We extend our warmest welcome and sincere appreciation to you and the government of people of Taiwan for your continued support. Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, we appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to participate in today's ceremony. Your presence is a testament to your consistent support to the business community. Honorable Minister Bradley Felix, Team Commerce is grateful for your support and your leadership. Welcome, Honorable Minister. I would like to acknowledge our Director of Commerce and Industry, who is spearheading the Love St. Lucia campaign and this initiative. Mrs. Belize, welcome, and thank you for your hard work and your dedication. Our private sector partners, other government officials, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you much, Madam PS, for these insightful remarks. Distinguished guests, it is my distinct privilege to introduce to you the one appointed to deliver our opening remarks, His Excellency Peter Chen. Please put your hands together to welcome the Ambassador.
Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, Honorable Bradley Felix, Minister for Commerce, Industry, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs, Permanent Secretary Sophia M. Henry, and representatives from prominent associations, friends of media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Since last year, the world confronts an unprecedented challenge posed by COVID-19. When facing this threat that respects no borders, one thing is certain, that we will only succeed in working together. I'm proud to witness our two countries work hand in hand again to implement the COVID-19 private sector support intervention program. This program aims to support micro, small, medium enterprises through providing sanitizing items that the business community require for reopening. I would like to commend the determination and the efforts of Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet and Honorable Minister Brady Felix and the government of St. Lucia to combat the pandemic and rejuvenating the economy. When others see volatility, we should see opportunities for prosperity. A telling example is that despite the COVID situation, my embassy teamed up with the Ministry of Commerce under the leadership of Honorable Minister Felix to hold a partnership opportunity delegation online conference last November, the first ever in both St. Lucia and Taiwan to promote tourism and attract investment from private sectors. As the World Health Assembly approaching, on behalf of the government and people of Taiwan, I would also like to express my heartfelt appreciation to Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney and the government of St. Lucia for voicing support of Taiwan's inclusion into the international community and recognizing its indispensability and contributions to the global health system in numerous international occasions, including the meeting of the UN and the WHO. I believe Taiwan's inclusion in WHO will greatly enhance the global fight against and prevention of epidemics. We are all in this together, and together we will win this war against the virus and come back better. Thank you, and may we all stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this remarkable speech. At this point, it is my distinct pleasure that I introduce our next speaker, the Minister for Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Minister Felix to deliver some brief remarks.
Master of ceremonies need to acknowledge that when election is around the corner, we don't give brief remarks, you know. Let me acknowledge Excellency Peter Shen, Ambassador of the Republic of China and Taiwan, Honorable Alan Chasney, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Mr. Matthew Branford, Accountant General, Mr. Brian Luisi, Acting Executive Director, St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Paula James, Executive Director of the St. Lucia Manufacturing Association, Mr. Anthony Bousquet, President of the Bakers Association, the staff of my ministry, in particular Director Junior Belize for leading the charge on the Love St. Lucia campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I forgot my hard-working permanent secretary, Mrs. Sophia Henry. Good morning. Yes, correct. When the coronavirus pandemic began spreading across the world just over a year ago, it did not spare any community or society and evolved into an economic and health crisis. Despite significant restrictive containment measures, to date, St. Lucia has recorded 4,492 cases and unfortunately 73 deaths. Although the pandemic has affected all businesses in one way or another, the impact has been much greater for micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs. And this is a highly vulnerable group, but the champions and backbones of our economy. The socio-economic impact of this phenomenon has implications for our poverty and social indicators. St. Lucia, pre-COVID, was ranked 8th in the Caribbean and 4th in the Eastern Caribbean in terms of the highest poverty rate, with a poverty rate of 26.3%. Estimates suggest that a 25% income shock as a result of the pandemic can cause poverty rate to reach 41%. Consistent with the 20.4% contraction in real GDP, overall unemployment rate increased to to 21.7% in 2020 from 16.8% in 2019. To minimize the fallout of the crisis, my government has been working tirelessly to protect the health, livelihoods, and safety of its citizens. Some COVID-19 relief measures implemented to date include: 1. The waiver of commercial property tax for landlords who extended moratoriums or rent reductions to their tenants. 2. Waiver of duties on personal hygiene products. 3. Increase in the subsidy on flour purchased by bakers for a period of 6 months. 4. Blended loan grant support was provided to micro, small, and medium enterprises with a focus on food security and adoption of digital technologies. 5. The NIC Economic Relief Program provided income support to approximately 11,800 persons, totaling $66.5 million, with average individual payments of $937.72 monthly. 6. Similarly, the central government, through its income support program, provided relief to approximately 4,811 affected persons for 3 months, with payments totaling $7.4 million. This relief program was geared towards individuals who were ineligible to benefit under the NIC's Economic Relief Program, but were also affected by the adverse effects of the pandemic. 7. Waiver of duties on the purchase of vehicles by essential workers. 8. Expansion of public assistance programs by 1,000 households. And 9. Provision of water tanks to vulnerable groups. As the Minister responsible for Commerce and Enterprise Development, I take this opportunity to commend the private sector for your partnership in combating this pandemic. The relevance of the business associations was underscored as they represented the interests of their members, which made it easier for the ministry to respond speedily to the needs of the business community. In response to a request from the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, the MSME support program was conceptualized as a COVID-19 prevention initiative geared towards enhancing the capacity of lower income level staff and owners of micro, small and medium enterprises to assist with their adherence to COVID-19 protocols. This was in an effort to curtail the spread of the coronavirus. The government of St. Lucia is pleased to receive assistance of just under $1 million from the government and people of Taiwan through the Embassy of Taiwan in St. Lucia. The funds will be utilized to provide supplies to 5,000 staff at the lower income level and 3,000 owners of micro, small and enterprises to enhance their capacity to adhere to 2 components of the COVID-19 protocols: wear a mask and sanitize. The items to be sourced and distributed are produced in St. Lucia, in keeping with the thrust to support local manufacturers and to help generate much-needed income. We are very happy to receive this assistance, especially given the dual benefits of increased revenue for the manufacturers of the items and the relief to the employers and owners of the MSMEs being targeted. We have no doubt that this initiative will add significant value and help mitigate some of the immediate threats of COVID-19 in our communities. On behalf of the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment Enterprise, and Consumer Affairs, and the business community, particularly the MSMEs, I wish to express our greatest appreciation and thanks to the government and people of Taiwan for complementing our efforts to provide much-needed efforts to the MSMEs and their employees as we control the spread of the COVID-19 virus in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Minister Bradley Felix, for such a captivating and interesting speech. Ladies and gentlemen, to address you at this time is a very distinguished an outspoken gentleman. He currently serves as the Executive Director of the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Brian Wizzy to the podium.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney, Honorable His Excellency Peter Chen, Ambassador, Republic of China, Taiwan, Honorable Bradley Felix, Minister of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs, Ms. Sophia Henry, senior members of staff of the Ministry of Commerce, distinguished heads and leaders of private sector organizations. Present, I recognize Mr. Buski of the Bakers Association. I recognize Paula James of the Manufacturers Association. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure for me to be part of this event today, because the master of ceremony somehow referred to me as outspoken. And maybe that's because I am never too shy to express what are the issues confronting my membership. And sometimes I do come down very hard on the Ministry of Commerce, and that's because we have a great expectation of them. We expect them to support us, and we expect them to help us achieve the objectives which we think are really the same as that of the Chamber members. On this occasion, I want to make a point to say that we approached the ministry during this really terrible period, and the ministry responded and acted. I think this is the fastest. I may be wrong with Sophia, we could check the days, but the ministry responded expeditiously and very pointedly to the request and the issue. And I really want to applaud the ministry, because I think this is a sign of change and a sign of things to come, because over the last few months, we have noted that. This is not just the first occasion, but this is the one this is an opportunity to point that out. So let me congratulate and thank the Permanent Secretary, thank the Minister, the team at the Ministry for being so responsive. The Minister made the point that the Chamber approached them on this matter. But if I might, I would share the genesis of this request. The Chamber hosted a membership forum to discuss COVID-19 issues. And as we planned for the meeting, I was having conversations with the Permanent Secretary. And of course, she said, and you're going to invite us, of course. I said, sure. So the ministry sat in on the membership meeting, and this issue was raised by a member who's in the cleaning business, who had had the experience of going to a number of medium and small enterprises to help them sanitize. And he was worried that he would go to these businesses and he would sanitize, and he would wonder what was happening to the staff. Were the staff able to sanitize at home, and were they bringing the virus to the businesses, or whether the business was able to provide the necessary sanitation? And so he raised that issue with the Chamber. And the reason he raised it is because 65% of our members fall in the category of micro, small, medium enterprises. And so this was a heartfelt comment. So we decided we needed to do something about it. The other part of the genesis was that the Chamber, as you know, is part of Recover St. Lucia, and we serve on the Employment and Economic Opportunity Subcommittee. And one of the things we've said is that we want to see St. Lucia recover and see the economy open safely. And we want to help businesses, especially the small businesses, develop the capacity to operate safely. So we will give them information, but we must give them the tools to do so. And we thought this type of initiative will help them change the signs that are on their doors that says, no mask, no entry, to no mask, come in, we will give you one. So we don't turn business away because we need businesses to operate, and we need the small and micro businesses to operate. So that was the second part of it. The third part is that the Chamber conducted its COVID-19 impact survey. We've conducted a series of them. And the surveys have made it very clear that the medium and small enterprises are more severely impacted during the COVID period than the larger counterparts. And so seeing these glaring comments, these glaring statements, that glaring data, we needed to react. And so this was part of our response to our members. We made a very slight proposal, and the ministry took it and shaped it into what it is today. So I want to again congratulate them on that. The Chamber has also said that this is just part of our, what we call our smaller member support program. Because after we saw the results of the second survey, we recognized that we needed to help our members. And so we created what we've called a smaller member support program. And I want to say up front that, again, speaking with the Permanent Secretary partnered with the Chamber, because our member support program is meant to give members, the smaller members, the information, the knowledge, the skills, and the tools so that they could become more competitive, they could be stronger, and they could continue to contribute to the economy and well-being of St. Lucians. And so we hosted jointly an e-seminar on incentives and concessions available to businesses in St. Lucia. And that is because we had complaints all the time. Oh, only non-nationals get incentives, only big business get incentives. And we had over 120 people sign up. Only 77 actually took part. But that showed you the thirst for information, because a lot of people say they don't know. The information is there, so we've been able to package it, and we were able to do that. And so the ministry worked with us, and they were very gracious, and so I want to make that point. So this program, we see it as part and extension of our support to the micro and small and medium enterprises. We think it's absolutely essential. It is going to have the desired effect, because in our survey, we recognize that businesses, micro, small businesses, they're putting in the protocols have cost them at least 20% increase in costs. That's what they've experienced. So you can imagine that on a small business. And so we really want to say thank you to this program. I want to thank the Republic of China and Taiwan for responding so expeditiously and so generously to this request. I think we're saying over 1,000 businesses, 5,000? Over 3,000 businesses are geared to benefit from that program. So we know the kind of impact it's going to have. It's going to help them lower their costs. It's going to help them operate more efficiently. It's going to help them not turn away customers as we try to respect the protocols. And so I want to say a special thank you to the Republic of Taiwan. I want to thank the government of St. Lucia for engaging the Chamber and supporting and listening to the overbearing, outspoken Brian Louisier founder that I am, because sometimes we do have to call and discuss, and the government and the Prime Minister has made time for those conversations and that dialogue. And so I want to thank them, and I want to implore the micro, medium, and small enterprises to use this support wisely, to reach out and extend it to your staff so that they too can be protected and they can feel more comfortable as they serve their customers. And I just wanted to give a final plug. I'm hoping today to get my second jab. Our chamber update is arguing that vaccination is the way to help us out of this pandemic, and so we are employing and encouraging our members. We have worked with the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association to provide that information. So as we move forward, I want to once again encourage St. Lucians and the business community to support the vaccination effort. Thank the government of St. Lucia and the Republic of Taiwan, Republic of China and Taiwan for their support for this program. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to thank you, Mr. Louisi, for these enchanting remarks. And as we move on, it is my distinguished pleasure that I introduce our next speaker, Ms. Paula James, the Executive Director of the St. Lucia Manufacturing Association. Can you please put your hands to welcome Ms. James?
Good morning, all. I'm so happy to see I was not branded. Maybe my reputation precedes me. Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Bradley Felix, our Minister, our dear and beloved Minister of Commerce, His Excellency Peter Chen, from the Republic of China, Taiwan, our Permanent Secretary, also dearly beloved and hardworking, from the Ministry of Commerce, Junior Emmanuel, who I trouble quite a lot, and all the members and other persons from the Ministry of Commerce, welcome. COVID-19 has been a challenge for manufacturing in St. Lucia. During the lockdown, it became even more challenging for us because our small, micro, and medium manufacturers had to find ways and means to get their staff to and from work while everybody else was sitting at home in the comfort. It was scary for them. We had to find ways to talk to them, to explain to them what the challenges are and why we must remain open because of our food security. I was inundated with calls from commerce, from agriculture. Do we have enough food? Do you have enough stock? Can we supply for 6 months? And this is what was going on with us in the manufacturing sector. Our members rose to the challenge, and I am so proud of them. St. Lucia would have been proud of them, because to get persons up for 5 o'clock in the morning, to get to some of their plans, and leave at 7 o'clock in the night, that was tough. We also had to make sure we were able to broker with bus drivers to take the workers to and from work so that they too are safe in this environment. So on behalf of the executive and members of the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Embassy of China and Taiwan and the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs for their assistance, for this assistance being given to our micro, small, and medium manufacturers. We continue to collaborate along the years with the Taiwan government. On many occasions, our members have visited Taiwan. They continue to do so, and we continue to work close with them, especially for getting equipment for our manufacturing plant. They have a wide range of stuff that is beneficial to us, and we utilize that opportunity to work through the embassy to make sure this is done. So for us, we would like to say thank you, sir, Your Excellency. This is good, and we would like to keep that relationship going. This will go a long way to help our members with regards to the additional sanitization that they have to do. Some of them have to do it 4 times a day, depending on the product they manufacture. A lot of them have to ensure they keep gloves on all day. So once you walk out of the plant, you come back in, another glove. So you may end up using 3 and 4 gloves in one day for one employee because of the product they manufacture. A lot of them have to ensure that they have masks at all times. So that also was an additional cost for some of them. Some of them in the food sector really do have to wear the mask, and that was prior to COVID. So that wasn't such a challenge for them. But the additional mask that they would have had to wear, because when you come off the bus, you have to change that mask. You onto the plant, you have one mask. You go out for lunch, you come back in, you have to change the mask. So there were additional costs for them with regards to that aspect of making sure they stayed safe during the COVID era. It was a challenge, and it still is a challenge, but we are coping, and we are trying to do our best to ensure that our staff stay safe, both in and out of the manufacturing plants. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank the government of St. Lucia, particularly the Ministry of Commerce. Guys, we trouble the Ministry of Commerce. There isn't a given day I don't have to call Jonathan, or maybe Sophia. I call Sophia at home if I have serious issues that I need to get resolved, and working closely with customs to ensure what we have to do is done. And maybe I laughed when I said, ma'am, I'm happy my name did not precede me, but I am a stickler for standards, and we have to make sure we have standards. So working with everybody to make sure we are all on the same page and keeping the manufacturers open is key to us. So I'm happy that this is happening and people can appreciate what we have to do to ensure that our food security stays alive. I look at what's going on in St. Vincent, and when I read yesterday and I saw the state of the agriculture produce, my heart dropped. Because I said to one or two people, what if the wind just went west and it didn't go mostly east? Look at Barbados. What would have happened to us? I feel for them because I can see it happening right here. And I mean, the little ash we get, it's a challenge. So when I look at what's going on there, it is a long haul for St. Vincent. We have to continue to pray to give them the strength and courage. We may have to help them replant some of their crops. And I'm happy, maybe Taiwan may be able to help them in that way. So to me, the challenge is not just about us, but for me, I am grateful to the Ministry of Commerce that we work with and we continue to work with. They are a mammoth help to everything we do with regards to trade. So on behalf of the manufacturers, we hope that we will continue this positive collaboration between St. Lucia and Taiwan and doing business and ensuring that we promote and continue to promote our locally produced products. We have a vast amount of products that St. Lucians do not realize, hey, this is made in St. Lucia. We have manufacturers with standards going out the windows, ISOs that's not finishing. So for me, when we talk about quality, the manufacturers do have quality in St. Lucia. And through the Ministry of Commerce and our Bureau of Standards, we would like to say thank you also, because they help us make sure we stay on top of this. Minister and PS, an additional thank you to you too. I know you all must be saying this child is so miserable, but I love them dearly to death. On behalf of the manufacturers, I say thank you for this welcome initiative.
Thank you, Mrs. James, for a very insightful and interesting speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our next speaker, Mr. Anthony Bousquet, President of the St. Lucia Bakers Association. Can you please welcome me too?
His Excellency Peter Chie Chen, Ambassador of the Republic of China in Taiwan, Honorable Alan Chasney, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Minister of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and Public Service, Honorable Bradley Felix, Minister of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs, Mrs. Sophia Henry, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Commerce. Mr. Brian Louisi, Executive Director of Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Paula James, Executive Director, St. Lucia Manufacturers Association. Specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. The baking sector, like all other sectors and industries in St. Lucia, has felt the impact of COVID-19. Lives have been lost, lives have been impacted. In our industry, sales have fallen to varying degrees in all product categories: bread, pastry, and cakes. However, our sector is critical to this food security strategy of the country. And while it has not been formally included on the list of essential services as captured under the Essential Services Act, the government has deemed it as an essential service in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Freshly baked bread is a staple that the average St. Lucian consumes at least twice daily and is manufactured by approximately 54 bakeries around the island. About 53% of these fall within CARICOM's definition of micro and small enterprises. Despite the strong economic headwinds generated by COVID-19, many small bakeries have continued to produce and have endeavored to do so safely and with adherence to protocols. Here I must thank the Ministry of Commerce for their tremendous support and guidance. Whereas I must thank also, in particular, the Honorable Bradley Felix and P.S. Henry. I must single out the foot soldier, Mr. Jonathan Allais, who has worked tirelessly to ensure that bakeries are able to navigate these turbulent waters related to COVID-19. Much of this support, such as the reduction in flour, which we got for a 6-month period in 2020, has gone into protocol adherence and to keeping our people employed and engaged. It would be remiss of me not to drop a strong hint, unveiled one at that, relative to the reinstitution of the said concession to the Ministry of Commerce. Among our staff are some who would be considered the more vulnerable of our society. These citizens, despite the economic challenges, have likewise placed tremendous effort and their very scarce resources towards trying to keep their families safe. These citizens, some of whom are our employees, have tried to do their civic duty, and in doing so, their difficult situation was made much more strenuous. We honor them, and today we attempt to provide assistance to the government and the people of Taiwan. Therefore, this support from the government and people of the Republic of China and Taiwan, administered through the Ministry of Commerce, will no doubt ensure that one expense line item is taken care of and the resources can once again go towards feeding their families. The Bakers Association Incorporated thanks you, Your Excellency, Peter Chien Chen, the Government of St. Lucia, and the Ministry of Commerce for its ongoing support. Your Excellency, I must tell you that we in the association have a vision of one day having a bakery on the level of the famous Taiwanese bakery, 85 Degrees. We have the vision of one emanating from St. Lucia. However, we must first stand victorious in this struggle against the scourge of COVID-19. Once again, I thank you and rest assured of the continued support of the Bakers Association.
Thanks much, Mr. Busquet, for this captivating speech. Honored guests, to address you at this very time is a very distinguished gentleman, our Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and the Public Service, the Honorable Alan Shastney. At this point in time, I would, that's right, yeah, just at this point in time, I would ask that, and I realize that you're already doing it, to give an energetic welcome to our PM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, if I can recognize the presence of the Peter Chen, the ambassador to Republic of China, Taiwan, my Minister of Commerce and Investments, Bradley Felix, Ms. Sophia Henry, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Commerce and Investment, Mr. Brian Louisi, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, probably one of the more important people in St. Lucia, Mr. Matthew Branford, the Accountant General, Ms. Paula James, the Executive Director of the Manufacturing Association, and Mr. Bousquet, President of the Bakers Association, other distinguished guests who are with us today. Let me start off by, first of all, thanking the Republic of China, Taiwan, once again, for their very generous donation at this particular time. Taiwan has been an inspiration for me, personally, and in terms of how they have handled the COVID outbreak. I believe if you are not one of the best, if you are not the best, you are one of the best in terms of curtailing the spread of COVID. And your inspiration came from being able to remain open. So the idea of coexisting with COVID is not a novel idea. It's not an unproven idea. It's not a wish, but Taiwan has actually put it into practice. And again, I don't want to be harsh on our own achievements, but Asia certainly had a significant head start in dealing with this COVID outbreak because of their experience with SARS. And while SARS was a threat to us, it was nothing that really came into play that would have impacted us. And I would dare say that if we do have another viral outbreak, which I certainly don't wish that we do, I think that we're, as a people, we're going to be much more prepared for it. But thankfully, we had Taiwan to be a guiding light in that regard. The ambassador brought up a very important point, and that's the one with regards to international Taiwan, China, one in which my government continues to persevere, whether it be at IATA, whether it be at WHO, or in our Green Globe initiatives. But I certainly would like to take this moment, having the presence of two of our largest private sector associations here, that I would certainly encourage them to maybe write to their both regional and international counterparts in assisting in achieving that recognition for Taiwan, China. I think that the world is much weaker in not having a country like them sitting at the table of many of the different international organizations like they used to before. And certainly I would encourage you, and if you are going to do it, certainly our government would endorse those initiatives in any way. So that's the greatest way, I think, of showing our gratitude to the people of Taiwan, China. And I want to say to our own St. Lucians that we have received assistance from many countries, the recent one being India, and that when they so generously offered vaccines for us, and look how quickly the table has turned on India in terms of their own situation. And I say this for us not to take for granted the contributions and the donations that are being made. These contributions come with a level of sacrifice. These are taxpayers' monies in Taiwan, China, that are going towards supporting their friendship with our country. And even though they've handled the COVID situation extremely well, this is not to say that it's not had its negative impact on the economy in China and Taiwan. There are many people who remained unemployed, businesses that have closed, because in their particular case, their international borders, because of their proximity to the epicenter, remain closed. And I think until they're able to find a way to reopen, and that's where we've been very blessed in St. Lucia, that we have found a way to open up our international borders by creating our own tourism bubble. And not many countries had that opportunity. And so we were able to find that little niche here. And again, I want to thank you, Ambassador, and if you could please convey to your minister, Mr. Joseph Wu, my appreciation, and certainly by extension, your President Tsai, for their continued support. COVID remains an issue here in St. Lucia. we still see on a daily basis numbers of cases. While the numbers have come down significantly, we have certainly not eliminated COVID from our borders. And as we had initially anticipated, that given the high level of non-communicable diseases that we had in St. Lucia, particularly hypertension as well as diabetes, that many of our members of our population would be vulnerable to COVID. And when you combine that with the fact that we have, the same way that we say that we have anti-vaxxers, we also have people who are anti-hospitalizations, meaning there are people who get sick and are fearful to go and see a doctor and go and get medical attention. And certainly if you have an underlying condition and you contract COVID and you wait too long, it makes any form of recovery very difficult. And sadly, even in the early days, there are indications that there will be many lingering side effects of persons who are vulnerable and who've contracted COVID. And so that we must continue to do everything we can to minimize the spread of COVID in our country. And it is those protocols that has caused even a different problem. So when we speak about lives, I think it's very clear the impact that COVID has had on the lives of people, our citizens, and within the region and even globally. But now livelihoods, because the protocols and the only thing that we had to counteract the spread of COVID were protocols, and many of those protocols really constrained the movement of people and the activity. And in particular, it affected a lot of our smaller businesses, and particularly businesses that persons would consider to be, and I don't mean to be derogatory in any way, so please don't take it as such, as non-essential. So a lot of our smaller businesses, the health department considered them to be of high risk in terms of spreading. And so therefore, whenever we have an increase in cases, we see the contraction in our economy, and it has a significant impact on small businesses in our country. And as indicated, the relative cost of sanitization on smaller companies is even a bigger burden. So I really want to thank the Private Sector Association that have worked with our government to find ways to help minimize the economic fallout on the business sector, as well as protecting lives. So this is a very good initiative and one that was done in conjunction with the private sector. And we got to hear Mr. Bousquet speak specifically about one sector in particular that is going to benefit from this. The other thing I'd like to say is that micro businesses are the heartbeat of our country. If you want to understand the prosperity for growth in your country, you have to look at the number of small businesses that are open and the number of small businesses that continue to open. And so this government has really gone out of its way to embrace that particular sector, and we continue to do so. The most recent introduction of our T-Village concept of creating appropriate land that with all the necessary infrastructure to cause small businesses to now, for the first time, have access to formalized real estate. So this is no different than persons who have squatted over the years for housing and cannot get water connections, cannot get electricity connections, and can't actually mortgage. So in fact, whatever investments they're making physically into their homes is literally a sunk cost because they cannot, in typical ways, leverage that with the financial sector. So all of a sudden, T-Village offers a small business the opportunity of showing the financial institutions that they have a permanent place in which they can have a longer-term lease. And more importantly, it acts like a smaller shopping mall. The monies that we're putting into the St. Lucia Development Bank to encourage the development of small businesses, and the one that the minister and myself and my cabinet is working on is really an equity fund. We genuinely believe the time has come, and it's absolutely necessary to see the development of more small businesses, there has to be an equity fund. Small businesses cannot afford to go and borrow money at those initial days, particularly ones that are in agro-processing or include intellectual property right. The risk is very high initially, and so banks are going to be very wary of putting monies in. And so we have to create an entity that can drive that equity partnership and understand the nuances of our small businesses and hopefully selecting the right ones that would be to the benefit of everyone. Lastly, I want to join with Brian Louisi in indicating that I was able to receive my second jab, as you put it, yesterday. My government is working overtime to try to get additional vaccines into St. Lucia as quickly as possible. We do have some good initiatives underway, and I'm hoping that very soon that we will be able to announce the arrival of some new vaccines. But as I was saying prior to the commencement of the meeting, and Brian was offering some advice, if we genuinely are concerned about each other and we are understanding of how important our economy is and recognizing the vulnerability and the risk that still exists internationally, the one thing that we can do to help ourselves is to become vaccinated. And I know that there continues to be this hesitancy, and persons, their famous line in St. Lucia is, "I'll wait and see." So I don't know whether they're waiting for me to drop dead or for something to happen, God forbid. But there is also a lot of information that talks about how safe this is and the level of advancements that we've had in technology to develop these kinds of vaccines. And certainly there will always be risk in everything that we do. Simply walking out of our home in the morning, driving a car, walking across the street, we're always exposed to risk. And certainly we've not seen the statistics that would suggest that the vaccines are of any greater risk than anything else in terms of numbers. But I just want to encourage all St. Lucians to understand that we do need to reopen our borders fully. We do need to see businesses, and particularly why we're here today, micro businesses, to be able to reopen without having all of these protocols, which are just cost prohibitive and are certainly limiting our ability to enjoy life. So the quickest way to do that is for many solutions to agree to become vaccinated. So I am hopeful, and I'm starting the campaign already, that once the vaccines do arrive, that we will see a continuation of what we saw initially, where 100% of the vaccines that we did have been taken up. And we're actually in the second phase of our vaccination program. So the vaccines we have here are sufficient to make sure all the persons who have been given the first jab can now get the second jab. But I want to encourage all of us that we can take matters in our own hand, we can control our own destiny, and we must all be each other's brother's keeper. And in doing that is to become vaccinated. So again, I want to thank everyone, and particularly Sophia and her ministry and the minister, for their continued efforts, always looking out for the smaller businesses. I can say one thing about my Minister of Commerce, that he has really been outstanding in making himself available, but always being conscious of the smaller businesses. And you would have thought a person who came from the banking sector would have been more conservative in his approach, but he has really been a champion for small businesses. So again, thank you all this morning for your participation. I wish much luck and success to the smaller businesses that are going to benefit from this donation. And again, Ambassador, if you can please convey St. Lucia's continued appreciation and gratitude for the generosity and the sacrifices that you continue to make to help your friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for quite an insightful and remarkable speech. We now have come to the handover of the letter of appreciation. I now invite Mrs. Henry to deliver the letter of appreciation to the Taiwanese ambassador, Mr. Cheng, on behalf of the Ministry of Commerce and the government and people of St. Lucia. Okay. We now invite the Taiwanese ambassador to hand over the check to the Accountant General. Yes, and we now will see that the handover of the receipt, the Taiwanese ambassador, and the Accountant General. Beautiful. We have now come to the end of our handing over ceremony, and I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs to express our sincere gratitude to all who have taken the time out of the busy schedule to attend this event with us. Again, I say thank you.